hit the record button. I'm going to turn up the volume on the music. All right. Well, that's all the failures I hope we have for one night. Ooh, hello, Internet. Welcome, all our 0 listeners, soon to be at least 1 or 2, I hope. I guess we're going to fire off with the intro stuff. Welcome to the game, a show where we talk about RPGs, nonsense, and whatever else we feel like. I am one of your hosts, the oldest of the people, the grumpy old man Merwin, Grom, or Merwin, whatever you want to go by, joined by one of my fellow writers here at Dungeon Studios, Dr. Pretorius. Go ahead and say your piece.
Yeah, sure. I'm Dr. Pretorius. I don't know if you're older than me, Merwin.
I'm fairly certain that I'm not.
Okay,
but,
all right. Just check it. I think I am the OG here at Dungeon Studios, and it's very exciting to be here on the game.
Yeah, but as I explained to everybody, though, little science fact for you. Einstein, smart guy, made a bomb or some shit, I don't know. He actually had it wrong. He said that mass affects gravity, and gravity affects time, slowing it down. But I'm living proof he's got it backwards because I am fat enough that I live in dog years because of the amount of mass I have. So I'm really like 197, which makes me the senior when you factor in mass. So,
well, don't say anything because he fudged some numbers too, but we won't get into that.
You know, I mean, when you're the smartest guy in the room, who's going to tell you that you're wrong?
That's right. Exactly.
So. Let's
hear about Merwin, your background, your nerd background.
I was going to say, as a first episode, we're going to introduce ourselves to all the people on the internet. Because there's about maybe a dozen of them in all of existence that know anything about me, because I've done a couple of streams. I think my most concurrent viewers at once was 2 people, so that was awesome. And then some guy from Brazil. So hey, I'll take what I can get, but
that's right.
Let's see. So I am 34 years into my nerd career. Found my first fantasy novel when I was 11. Happened to pick up the middle book of the Dragonlance trilogy, and then that led to the Hobbit, which led to me just reading everything that I could. I was always thought I wanted to be a writer. Turns out, always wanted to be a storyteller, and that led me, like I said, right into finding Dungeons and Dragons. In 7th grade of middle school, my first game was horrible. I couldn't think of
what year would that be when you were middle school.
Are you really gonna make me do that?
Yeah, no, I gotta get an idea.
Oh God, 89.
Okay, good. All right.
88 maybe even. Jeez.
That's okay. You'll see how this all fits together when
I know. But yeah, so I'd always wanted to always created stories and everything, and I just assumed when I heard about this game that I was going to be it was going to be amazing, and then they start asking me questions like, "What's your character's name?" I'm like, "I don't know." So my first character was a short-lived wizard. Always liked magic. Who had the ignominious name of Snowguard Sunjins, or Sund Eongs, whatever Dungeons & Dragons is backwards. And I lived about, 3 minutes before cruelly being murdered by the DM. And then my response was, all right, let's go again, kind of thing. So I only got a couple of games with them, and then found out that one of my buddies from the neighborhood, his older brother, classic Eddie type, from D&D past, played, and that led to a little drug deal where I gave up money and I got dice, but my mom couldn't know because she was crazy. And then away we go. I've played a ton of stuff since. All manner of RPGs and whatnot. I'm basically a forever DM at this point in my life, or have been for pretty much ever. Did D&D, Shadowrun, Rifts, Vampire. I got all manner of weird ones tucked in there too. I can't even remember the names of. So,
and you've also done Twitch. You've done some Twitch broadcasts too, right?
Yeah. So, we. So I.
You gotta put that in your resume, then I think.
Well, I do. A dozen or so that I have in there. Actually, so here's what I have out on the interwebs that people may have seen. So I started and then tried to restart my own podcast called the Gromcast. Did 15 episodes originally with my friend Jamie, and then went on a very long hiatus. Came back with a couple of local nerds, got a couple episodes in, but full-time jobs and wives and scheduling issues put a kibosh on that. And then in between that, there was some streaming. I may have streamed a few of my horrible home games without telling anybody years ago. And then in support of a charity event that we did with our now departed local game store, we ran several episodes of the story so far. That's my overall campaign name. This session is the Tales of the Northern Province. The last one that I did was the Wolves of Winter, both campaigns that I've written. And we streamed a few months of that, trying to build up enough followers and whatnot to stream the charity event, which was a all day long funhouse mega dungeon crawl kind of thing for charity. Cool. Yeah. Oh yeah. It worked out. Yeah, we raised almost $1,000. It was a good time. There was like 50 some odd participants, and we learned a lot of lessons. We actually intend to turn this into something. Kind of a traveling show, if you will, getting the physical props for the game kind of built up, refining the actual modules, and challenges.
That sounds neat.
And the rules. Yeah, and the rules so that you can run it in a for-profit kind of environment. So if you're playing the game, people that are waiting to rotate in can throw money down to make a monster harder, give you guys give the players a benefit, add more monsters, even if they want to take control of a baddie and try to murder everyone. So they're throwing money in like that. The players can throw money in to help themselves out, and the tournament element of it, which we didn't do for the charity event because it's our first go around. But the tournament style of it is you'll have 3 or 4 DMs running preset groups that have paid to play,
right?
Through each of the sections of the dungeon. It's called the Endless Menagerie. But they'll run through a section of it, and then based on how much money you spent for yourselves, how much money was spent against you, how far you got, we'll score each of the teams. And then at the end of the day, the best teams would, if you're doing a multi-day event, the best teams advance to the next day and get further into the dungeon. If it's a single-day event, then the highest scoring team at the end of the day wins whatever prizes we put up. And like I said, we did it for charity the first time, so I think that would be kind of the overriding plan. So I've done probably 30 or 40 hours of D&D on the internet, which not many people have watched. And my idea for it now, if I ever get around to having the time to do it again, is I'm going to run. I'm going to go back to this, running the story so far on the internet. We're going to call the show D&D Raw. It'll have zero production value. It will literally be just cameras on nerds doing what we do during a D&D game. So not going to be voice actors, not going to be terribly well presented, a lot of bad jokes, some eating in between, and watching actual nerds play Dungeons and Dragons. I can't imagine how it wouldn't be a fantastic smash hit.
I have to say, some of the jokes are the best. I mean, I'm the forever DM too, and my players hit me with some, and I laugh for hours when they say stuff. Some jokes come up. But.
All right, so hit me. You said you are the elder, so
I guess I started way back in 79.
So how old were you in 79?
Oh gosh,
I was
12?
2. So
I was 12.
Okay.
And my brother was he 17 at the time? You have to also remember that the drinking age at that time was also 16.
Oh, well.
My 2 brothers lived downstairs in our house, so they pretty much had a bachelor pad. And everybody hung out downstairs. My brother Joe was a big Lord of the Rings fan. And in the back of the book at the time, there was an ad for Dungeons and Dragons. Somehow Gygax got that ad in there. I don't know how they did it. But that intrigued my brother. He went out and bought the white box set. And I played with him and his friends. He had designed a wilderness adventure for us. But man, they were plastered. So here I am, the 12-year-old, like, I can do this. I'm going to fight this. I got all these, abilities, blah, blah. Yeah. And they were too busy talking about girls and pass the beer and all that sort of stuff. So I really didn't get into playing with them. And my brother actually and the friends ruined the books. They spilled beer on them, the whole 9 yards. So I took that really hard. And my brother went out and bought me the basic set with the blue book.
Okay.
And he was like, here, this is for you. And I took off from there. We were in middle school, met some other friends. Another friend of mine who was actually playing, who's a DM, already read the whole blue book. It's like, I'm DMing. And it's funny because then you gave that story about the first time you played. Same thing. First time I played, Wizard Mikor. We go into dungeon, I don't even think it was first room. Skeletons took us out. Game was over. And the other thing that was really funny was this guy was already homebrewing, and we were 12. He was like, well, because that skeleton killed you, it's going to get experience and have more hit points the next time you come up against it. And I didn't know what the heck he was even talking about. I just learned how to play the damn game. So, all right, so that was the beginning.
Yeah.
And then that group, we played tons of role-playing games, but I'm not going to go into all them right now. Continue to play D&D all throughout high school. Our group would meet every Saturday if we could. And then, in between, football games and band practice and all that stuff, we were still making time for it, our core group. So we kept playing, moved ourselves all the way up to, I guess, second edition.
Real quick, hang on. I got to stop you there. Just to clarify, when you say band practice, garage band, marching band?
No, marching band band practice.
Oh, I'm so sorry for you.
No, that wasn't me. That was the other guys.
Oh, okay.
I was not in marching
Thankfully,
band.
you were spared. All right, good.
Yeah. I was a drama club guy, and I was actually the roadie for that marching band. So being the roadie was fine.
Roadie for the marching band. That's fucking phenomenal. Right.
Yeah, it was great. I loaded the bus.
Oh, nice.
All right. So anyway, so we continued to play all throughout high school and college into 2, and then broke into, Ravenloft and all those, where I kept playing with friends. I ended up in Pennsylvania, and then I was coming home driving back to New York so we could keep playing. But eventually it just got too much, and I became a certified school teacher, moved to Maryland, and pretty much dropped the game.
You definitely have a teacher vibe about you, by the way. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Dropped the game for 20 years, taught math and science in elementary school. Now, let me tell you, role-playing games and everything I had done in D&D as a DM was always in my classroom. It definitely helped me be a teacher, being a DM beforehand. I would have to say that.
That's because being a DM taught you how to handle babies?
Well, not only that, but how to, just set up the whole experience. Could really motivate my students with good stories, good storytelling, exciting things. We didn't just do math. We talked about the dragon and the gold, and let's do the math now. So it worked really good. It worked really well for me. The problem was I ended up being exposed to some toxic mold.
Oh.
Which ended up triggering a genetic disease in me. So I had to leave teaching. It was really bad. I was in a really bad way. And that group that I played D&D with all those years came back and said, hey, we can play online. Let's play online. They have this new 5e. You got to play. And when we first started, I said, dude, I can't play. This was like 2019. I said, I can't play. I couldn't even think. I couldn't read. I had shakes. It was atrocious. And they actually coached me and encouraged me to keep, come on, you got to play, you got to play, you got to play. They started playing without me. And then they just said, oh, we're playing every Thursday night. We're here. You just need to come in and play. You just need to come in and play. And I say, but a couple months later, I had finally built the character. Got in and started playing. Guess I played for about a year. I started my recovery. My wife was like, wow, you're doing great. Keep playing that game. It seemed to be something that motivated me to get out of my funk when I was really, really in a deep, dark depression. So that's really a big part of the game for me is it brought me out of a dark, dark place. And then, of course, that year later, they asked me to take back over as the DM. And I wasn't really ready. So I started DMing for my daughter's Girl Scout troop. Sort of as like, I'll try with little kids first, since I was already a teacher. Started running a campaign for them. They loved it. It went great. I felt comfortable. About 6 months into that campaign, I took over DMing for my old crew. Then about 6 months after that, I started another group for chronically ill people on Facebook. I felt like it had been so important in my recovery that I kind of wanted to share that with other people. So I started a group called Dr. Platorius's Chronic Adventurers. And we have a few people now. We meet every other Saturday, I guess sickness withstanding. If we're all feeling okay, we all meet up and we get to play. So it's been awesome. So I guess that's my nerd credentials for D&D. But I was also a cosplayer long before it was called cosplay.
Yeah.
I was wearing that Borg costume in the Star Trek conventions and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. What else would I be a nerd at?
I don't know.
Oh, and then, of course, I joined Dungeon Studios about a year ago.
All right.
And I think I'm cruising on like 20 different Discords. I pop in and out all different Discords, check out different Kickstarters, give a little input here and there. I'm really enjoying how much the game has expanded outside of just this table you play with your friends. There's so much going on. And so many people playing it now. I mean, I thought I was all by myself.
Nice. Good stuff. Good stuff.
So what other games do you play besides D&D? What other role-playing games?
I found, let's see, so in high school, we were big Magic players, was kind of the big thing. So,
Okay.
that group of people, sorry, I'm trying to figure out why my internet sucks and talk at the same time. No, so, so we had a whole crew of people, that, in high school that were gamers. So there were some tabletop war games, video games. Magic was the big one. And then a lot of those people, just because all of the nerd stuff is kind of interwoven, a lot of people had played different games. So, I remember coming up, there was Rift was an old system that I remember a little bit of. It did have a concept that I always liked, the mega damage and normal damage. So you could shoot your 45 at a tank all you wanted. It was never going to do anything. Because a tank had armor that gave it a mega damage of 1 or mega hit points of 1. I think it's roughly. And I fell in love with the idea of the Rift Walkers, their version of wizards. But that was up for Palladium. That was a super complicated game.
Most of their games were very complicated.
But you know what though? It was one of the first games that I saw that had like really. Like source books that added to the game, because D&D didn't have that. So I started out with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It was, the blue DM's guide with the white wizard on it, and the little demon coming out of the background, and
right.
and then
then even the advanced books, there was only the monster manual, the DM's guide.
Yeah, and adventurers. I mean, you had setting stuff, but nothing that really modified the game. Like you didn't. It wasn't until you got later in second edition you got the class books that came up with the idea of kits, which were kind of like the predecessor to prestige classes, which were the precursor to fifth editions. I can't think what they're called now, but the your specialization when you get to the second or third level, where you pick, you're going to be
right. Well, you know what that was though. That was Dragon Magazine back then.
Yeah.
Because Dragon Magazine had Ranger in it and had all the other stuff in it. That you would add into your games.
Yeah.
So that was really the big additions for us. Yeah, I think of Traveler when you talk about those games.
Okay. Traveler, the only game you can spend 6 hours making a character and never get to the first session because you died in character creation.
Yeah, but that game had a gabillion books.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing was so fleshed out. You could buy a book about battleships, or a book about cargo ships, or a book about anything, players, different classes. I'm probably using the wrong term, but that game had tons and tons of supplements, crazy amounts.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing with Palladium, is that it had source books for so much stuff that you could look at and say, okay, this is the setting you want to use, or different things. And they added like classes and rules and whatnot, where like I said, D&D didn't really have that. So, but yeah, the big one. So like I said, then there was I played one system. I want to say it was called Fate, but that might be wrong. Where it was just 2d10s, and a lot of it was just interacting and storytelling and whatnot. And then the big one that we got into was Shadowrun, which is
it was definitely a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, and some people played Cyberpunk. Shadowrun's like cyber fantasy. There was a Star Wars game I always wanted to do, but then you have the problem that everybody wants to be Jedi, and that's not going to work.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then a bunch of other systems in between. Like one of my friends had RuneQuest, and I believe Gary Gygax came out with one called, I want to say, Dangerous Journeys, where everything in the system was everything was percentiles. It's one of the ones where somebody explained it to me. Actually, no, what's funny, it was my friend Mike's older brother Jimmy, that he was in a group in his 20s, and the guy running it had that book and was doing a lot of homebrew stuff, and I think might have lied a little bit and claimed that he wrote the rules. I think, if I remember the story correctly, he claimed that he had written the book, but I'm like, that's not true. But it was a percentile system, which I think is interesting, because that was the whole character development was managing all these dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen skills with percentiles and whatnot. So neat ideas. And then a couple of oddballs here and there. Like I went to Gen Con one year and played Highlander role playing game. Played a few other different oddball ones. So that was I
didn't even know there was a Highlander role.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where it's like, well, if you play the game because you're a fan of Highlander, I mean, doesn't everybody want to be the Highlander? Like, doesn't everybody want to be an immortal? And then that kind of counterproductive to the whole setting. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. No.
But yeah. So while we're on the topic, like we talked about before, so there's the nerd cred, the resume of nerddom, if you will. So let me ask you. So mechanically, do you have a system that you like the mechanics of besides regular old D&D? Do you have a favorite, or is it all D20s for you?
It was really interesting. I was in a test play for the new Marvel game.
Okay.
And they used a system I had never seen before. They use 3 6-sided dice.
Okay.
And then they're actually positioned, like the first die is in position 1, the second die is in position 2, and the third die is in position 3. And you roll those for pretty much everything you do, like skill checks. Like we roll 20-sided in D&D. Mm-hmm. And the big one was the game is set in, Marvel Comics Earth 616. So if you roll a 616, that's like the best roll you can get.
That's neat.
And then they had this really interesting setup for, first number, second number, third number. And I'd never seen a system like that. And it was actually at the 616, it sort of gave the GM. I was a player, so I didn't actually see the rule set. Mm-hmm. He wasn't giving it out to us, but he was explaining that, when it's 616, he can really go over the top with, how your power worked.
Right.
And then I thought that was a really neat system.
That'd be like the Phoenix Force wiping out existence, or,
right.
That kind of crazy shit like that. Okay.
Yeah. Or Wolverine actually cut someone in half at that point.
Very nice. Do you have is that?
But no, game system wise, no. I've played so many different games. I thought at one time they were trying to do the crossovers where you could like go from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and time travel to Boot Hill. and then you could like time travel to Gamma World. And we tried a lot of that back in the day, but it never really worked very well. Never played very well story wise.
Yeah. Well, that's why I never. I know some people are all giddy about the recent re-release of Spelljammer, but I never It's like I just didn't get it. Like didn't tickle my fancy. Didn't appeal to me at all. So.
Well, that's funny because I was a Spelljammer DM, and the only reason. Now wait, I'm going to tell you the only reason why I like Spelljamming back then for 2E was because everybody I played with knew all the monsters, all the other monsters. So once I had a new set of monsters that they didn't know, it sort of gave the mystery back to the game. I mean, I kind of felt that way coming back to 5E, even from 2E, because the monsters are not the same.
Well, yeah, I will tell you, definitely an interesting experience when. And I know this from trying to modify second edition back in the day. The look on the players' faces when they see the horde of orcs and they, go whack away at one of them and like, well, I did like 10 damage, he's dead, right? And like, nope. There's like, well, it depends on the group. My normal home game just yelled at me that I was cheating. But more sensible folk would realize they were in for something they weren't expecting and kind of enjoy the challenge. That's one of the things that I argue with my friends about incessantly and other gamers is this idea of mystery in the game. And I remember back to when you started and the first time you got the rule book and you cracked it open and you're like reading about spells and you read about high level ones and you're thinking about like how crazy it'll be to someday like throw a fireball or whatever. Right. Or when you found a magic item and it, death was right around the corner and you bled and lost 37 characters getting through the first room and you finally make your way and you get that first item and you're like, ooh, you don't know what it does. Like there's something about that. And I always, that has shaped my my game philosophy is always trying to do that. So, I agree.
I agree. I remember I had started a campaign with a group in Philadelphia when I was living there, and I started this thing with potions were colors. So all they knew were colors. And it was such a great thing to do because then they found red potions and then they found purple potions. And then it was very interesting because it kept the mystery up.
Yep. Yeah, no, you
really did.
Yeah, you have to. It's one of the reasons why, shameless plug, one of the reasons why many of the monsters in our upcoming Volume 2 Kickstarter for Dungeon Studios, many of the monsters that I use are have a template attached to them that fits them in with the theme of the dungeon. So what might look like a zombie will actually be something completely unexpected, not to give anything away. But it's a very simple way to tie together a dungeon or a story arc. And then
and I wrote in mine. I guess I definitely put in some original monsters, but I put some SRDs in too. But you got to keep that mystery up.
Yep.
I think it's essential. Now we're talking about games.
Yep.
And I don't know if this crosses role playing. It's sort of role playing, but it's also sort of board game. Have you ever heard of the game Grav Ball?
Grav Ball?
Yeah, Grav Ball.
Is this a board game or a game you invented?
Yeah, it was actually a board game.
Okay.
And it was set up where you got lead miniatures.
Okay.
Of course, because they don't give lead miniatures anymore.
Good, very good to chew on.
Right. And they were on. Basically, it's a game where it's 5-on-5 in a 0G stadium.
Okay.
And there's a metal ball, and you've got to throw this ball into the goal. And it's no tie, whatever, punch, kick, check.
Okay.
Sort of like rollerball, only, one, not in a circle. And then this robot comes out when everybody starts fighting and starts beating everybody up. So the game was run by a ref.
Okay.
And he ran the robot. And then two other players were playing the two teams. And man, we had the best time playing this game. And I don't know if it was just the excitement of playing such a space age violent game, with, no repercussions. Maybe we felt free of role playing rules. It was sort of a break when we would play D&D. Like if everybody didn't show up, hey, let's play grab ball tonight, you know? But that was definitely a great game. And actually, the video game Speedball on the old Genesis,
Okay.
that's taken from that game Grab Ball.
All right. When you started mentioning the no holds barred, my video game mind immediately went to like Mutant League Hockey or whatever.
Right,
where
right.
no one ever tried to win the game. You tried to kill all the other players, so the team had a forfeit.
So I guess maybe that's what we liked about it. I guess it wasn't us against monsters; it was us against us. I don't know.
Yeah. See, I was having this conversation. Speaking of other games, so we would create games. We try to, anyways, and we created some real life games. Just given our environment, there was one called Drive Ball. My buddy Sean's already laughing about this, I'm sure. And it's, I don't know how to explain it. So take tennis rules, but get rid of the net, get rid of the tennis ball and rackets, replace it with your bare hand and those little mini basketballs you used to like get at Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
Hard fucking monster rubber things. And it was 2-on-2 out in the street, and you had to serve across the no man's land, and then whack that ball back, with your hand, into the enemy side. However, the game, of course, couldn't be that simple, so there was all manner of fucking rules. But in the no man's land, you could accost each other, and I came to Sean's buddy Doug, who was like 11 and a half feet tall. We learned to fear the ball because of Doug, because if you went in the no man's land with Doug, he would fucking spike that off your face, and there was nothing you could do about it. And I wasn't short. Like, I'm tall. I was 6'1", probably a little taller before I was old and fat, maybe 6'2" even. But Doug was a fucking Mameluke, so he would just manhandle you. So, of course, those are rules he had written up, I think. So he loved that shit.
All right. So now you were talking about you don't like the Spelljammer setting.
I
so
hate, yes.
What is your setting? What
my
settings
MO for everything. So let me just preface this for the people on the internet and for you who are going to have to hear me talk for thousands of hours. I pretty much complain about everything. I like nothing except what I do, and then everything else is garbage. That's just my default setting. But no. So much to some of my friends' chagrin, I am about 96% a Tolkienian purist. So I like that medieval style fantasy, and not that I'm opposed to having, and I have this in my campaign setting, my own homebrew, having analogs to exotic cultures, and I love fucking samurai and ninjas, and as I opened the game world up to player driven creation. I have whole sections that are analogous to like real world cultures in different places. So I have no problem with that kind of stuff. But I stick to this core philosophy that magic is magic and special and rare, and items are things that that have a history. You're not going to go into fucking Gnome Mart and peruse the aisle of discounted +1 swords.
I agree with you on that one.
Getting pumped out by a gnome assembly line in the back room. This is, by the way, I hate gnomes, which is why all the things I hate are run by gnomes. But
that's why my module is about a gnome. Just because you hate it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I was forced. I was forced. I'm not anti-magic. I look at my buddy in the chat. I'm not anti-magic. I'm anti-magic being common. That's what I'm anti. But I was forced to put gnomes in my module as well. That's the problem when you write for somebody else. You got to put their crazy ideas in print. So my friends can look forward to that. In the playtest, I have to actually have gnomes alive. Hurts me to the soul.
I think I agree with you. I think I'm very Tolkien based European.
Right. So with that,
stretch into that other stuff.
Yeah. So with that being said, so the that idea that it is a pre-technological world, and magic is like I said, is rare, and those things are very special in the world. So that's really typically what I kind of stick to in my D&D fantasy RPG kind of settings. So when it comes to things like like steampunk stuff, if I have control of things, it's not.
It's just thinking that very word.
I keep looking. Sorry, I keep looking over at the chat. My friends are harassing me. So, but no, I keep. If I have the option, I don't really include the magic punk kind of stuff, airships and wacky robots and automatons and. But here's the thing: the same thing applies to some of the modern sensibilities. Things with, it was a long time for me to work in, tieflings and dragonborn and any sort of anthropomorphized animal characters into my games, and I really had to find a fluff that I was comfortable with to add them. But that stuff just never appealed to me. And here's the thing: with crazy thing is, I like pirates. I love the Shadowrun setting, which is cyberpunk and fantasy mixed together. But that's because that's what those settings are. I'm going into the game knowing that this is what it is.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think when they wrote Barrier Peaks,
yep,
back in the day, that crossed into the
you find a spaceship and the wands are actually fucking blasters. I remember that one.
Now I love that. I mean, and again, I thought that was really cool. They made it very limiting. So like when you left, you had to have your power chips to run the weapons or they weren't going to work anymore. It wasn't like it was going to break the game.
Right.
So I do like that. And I think the thing with steampunk for me in the game or technology, I think, again, like you were saying with the magic, it's a rarity when you come across it. I like to have it sometimes, though. I think it works pretty well. I feel very comfortable with it, but I'm also, like I said, I'm a Spelljammer guy too. So.
Yeah. No, like I said, that just never super appealed to me because the other problem with it, and I hear, from what I understand, this is still a problem with the modern iteration of it, is that what makes the setting magical? It's the fact that you're on these ships that travel around, between worlds in space, and there are all these things that are unique to that. But the problem with that in the old game is that everything was just based around going to some new world and doing normal D&D stuff and getting back on your ship. And then, with a few exceptions, you obviously had your pirate raids and things like that. But how many times can you do that in a campaign before you're like, meh, okay.
See, but I think the thing about Spelljammers that worked for me back in the day was the ships operated by eating magic items. So if you had a party that had too much freaking magic, they couldn't go anywhere. They had to put it in the engine.
They had to burn it to go?
They had to burn it to go.
I guess people kind of grumpy, though, doesn't it?
No, it really didn't make them grumpy because you got to think about, too, Spelljammers are collecting all kinds of, materials along the way. And that became part of the game, because you could get stranded on a planet. That planet is now the campaign.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I mean, that's the way I played it. That's the way we did. I always think of that AWOL Nation video. The guy with the goggles and he's like throwing the magic books into the fireplace. You ever seen that video?
No.
Oh man, you got to look it up. Oh, it's freaking great. It's total. Very steampunk. You got to check it out. AWOL Nation.
All right, I will do that. But it never appealed to me because it just ended up being
the ADD song.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta check it out.
Make a note of that. But yeah, it never appealed to me because it always just ended up being just D&D on a planet, and the spaceships ended up kind of being fast travel or whatever. And then
here's another thing: we had already been big Star Trek role playing game fans. So that whole idea of space combat and all of that, and then exploring planets, having those two different dynamics, we were already used to that.
Yeah.
So I think that fit very well for us when we were able to switch right over.
Yeah, but the space combat stuff sucked. Like that's the big knock on the modern one.
Yeah, but I think that's what I'm saying. We kind of homebrewed our space combat from Star Trek into Jammers. If that made sense.
No, absolutely no. That would. See, this is the thing. This was my suggestion with the modern Spelljammer things. We were talking about it in my Wednesday group and with some other people. Is that the way the rules are not set up to provide a rewarding experience. Just like my friend ran a few sessions of Starfinder, which is the space version of Pathfinder. I like the rule set. We had a good time with it. There's a lot of hilarious jokes that we came up with. But when it got to the ship parts, the way that the game is set up so poorly, because you get one ship and it's like, all right, all 5 people are working together, except that all 5 people have like 1 or 2 options. They don't really do anything. It's very static for everyone except the pilot who moves the ship. Otherwise, you're making attack rolls, and I'm like, that like, there's not enough depth to the ship combat where everybody has meaningful choices that impact everybody else and really provide a
Yeah, and I think that was covered in the Star Trek game.
Yeah, where so like
that's the nature of Star Trek. Everybody has a role during the engineer.
So, which unfortunately I don't think translates well. Which is why I would suggest one of 2 things. One, you have to shoehorn in there. In Star Trek it'd be runabouts, or in other systems, starfighters, smaller ships, mini spelljammers,
right,
so that people, maybe you have 1 or 2 you have 2 roles on the ship that have a ton of options, so you really got it, so like the choices matter, and then everybody else is controlling their own starfighter, trying to help out with things and whatnot. Or option 2 is again, you just give up on using the rules they provide you, and you grab another system to play the game. Like we played one called Silent Death back in the day. That was a fun little starship combat game. I know that there's there's the Star Wars Armada. There's several other systems that you could probably co-op.
Yeah,
and then you just have to make the move to have more stuff. Which is, if you notice, speaking of Star Trek, if you're a fan of the shows and everything, in later seasons, what you started to get them including things like they get into fights and they would have the runabouts zipping around, shooting shit and whatnot, because otherwise there's only so many times you can rock the camera and have everybody jump around the bridge before, and have the warp core breach before you're like, okay, that's another episode of okay. I'm sure it'll be fine.
If you do play Spelljammer out there and you're listening to us, make sure they have to have some kind of fuel, and think about what else can happen to those ships, man. Because I feel like they're indestructible. They just say, okay, here's the ship, you're good to go.
Yeah. Well, the other problem with the rules is written for that too is that in Spelljammer, all the ship options are buns compared to everything the characters can do. Like one of the guys in my Wednesday group had bought that, and they're like talking about it, and I'm like, it's like, yeah, you could fire the cannons. It takes 7 rounds. You roll 1 dice, and it does 3d10 damage. Like, wow. Well, in 5e, and this is one of the many rules I have a problem with, but like, wow, my character's fucking cantrip does 3d10 damage, and I can do it every round. Why would I fire the fucking cannon? Why would I give a shit about that? It's so skewed because the players are basically little superheroes. They have so much shit they can do.
And that's it. That's why I went with the magic item consumption. I think that's essential.
Yeah, I mean it's not, again, having some dump for resources, certainly not a problem. But I will say, in fairness to my friends who hate everything I do, at least one of them who's in the chat right now sniping at me, but I've softened in my old age. As like I said, I opened up the game world for other people to contribute ideas more and more and more. I got a lot of systems in place that I do that with, and I've softened. So, we got I want to teach my kid the game.
How many campaigns are you currently running now? Do you have one group? How many?
Just one. I was doing 2. So I was running the final arc of the Wolves of Winter, while running the first arc and the beginning of the second arc of the Tales of the Northern Province with a group of noobs and my daughter who was learning how to play the game. And then that game kind of fell apart, and I mixed in kind of mixed groups. A couple people from that game came over to the Wolves of Winter, and we finished that out. And then as that was ending, we had started up at the local game store. I had started up another session of Tales of the Northern Province. So now Wolves of Winter finished and back in January, and I've just been running the one now. Although now we're going to be starting playtest. That's a good segue, by the way. If you weren't planning it, shame. If you were, pretty smooth. I like it.
It's good. Was.
All right, I like it.
Certainly was. Yeah, I currently run 3. I run the Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
I run Dr. Pretorius's Chronic Adventurers. And then I run one which I call La Mission de la Cruz de la Plata, which of course is the Curse of the Cross of Silver, which is my Ravenloft campaign. And now, of course, I'm also going to be running DMing for Dungeon Studios. I've already run a test of Misty Towers. In fact, tomorrow night I'm running.
Well, hey, say don't Rise of the Ravenlord, right? Or are you done with that?
Pillars of Light. I already did Ravenlord.
Oh, nice.
Rise of the Ravenlord. Yeah, I already did that one.
Okay.
That one's going back to the author to do some touch-ups.
Yeah, don't get too deep in the stories about this. That's what I want to do.
Oh no.
I wanted to fill up the second part of our conversation with some of that stuff because I'm interested in how those are going.
No, and tomorrow is Pillars of Light. I'll be DMing tomorrow night.
Yeah, my real world life goes from being kind of mellow to stupid. We're currently in a very stupid phase. So my free evenings have dried up. I'm looking forward to running a playtest of the module I wrote, the Titan's Peak. I had wanted to hop into some playtest and or offer to run other playtests. Just haven't had the windows of time to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it gets tricky running 3 campaigns and everything else you're doing.
All right. Well, let me finish. We got roundabout on the topic. So mechanically, the system that I like a lot is the Shadowrun style system. Not specifically theirs because the modern rules are a hot dumpster fire, and the old ones were good. But I just started reviewing some of them because I'm going to run a one shot for the local people here when I get a free weekend. And I wasn't sure if I thought the rules were awesome because of nostalgia or because they really were good. And I'm finding that they're better than I thought they would be going back, but there's still some issues and things to tweak. But the big thing with that system that I like is I like the idea of different stats combining to make like meta stats. So, in the game, so like, your initiative is is your reaction stat plus your it's reaction, willpower, and something else. Add them up, you divide them, and that gives you your stat for like initiative, for example. And the reason I like the idea of that is that one, it's logical. Like your ability to react is even in the real world, your ability to react in the real world is a mixture of how calm, cool, and collected you are, how well trained you are, and how well you can recall that training to react in a certain situation. And then it also relies heavily on your ability to see what's coming in, processing input to determine when and what to do and when to act, but also, physically, how can you do that? And that's going to vary from people to people. And the beauty of that system, my opinion, anyways, is that unlike Dungeons and Dragons or others where everything is, one stat affects one other thing, there's no dump stat. There really isn't a best of stat in that game. Like D&D, and this is a topic I can argue about for like 37 hours. We'll have to save it for a later show. But like dexterity was, and will always be, as currently iterated, the best stat in Dungeons and Dragons, hands down. It's because it's good for every class. In modern editions of the game, they even decided to you can add your dexterity as damage bonus to melee weapons, which is fucking madness. So it's just there's no reason not to have that be, if not your highest stat, your second highest stat. It's good for everything, and if you do the math on it, a dexterity fighter is better than a strength fighter, a con fighter, heavy armor. They're just better, just flat out better because, and again, I'm not going to get into that. So those merge systems kind of avoid that, which is interesting. And then I like mini games, and I like challenging not challenging rules, but I like things that challenge the player. So one of the things with the third edition was that you have your skills. The higher your skill, the better you are because you roll more dice. The better your stats are, and the meta stats are, the better your outcomes are going to be because you have more dice. But then they give you pools that you have to kind of manage throughout an entire round of combat, and some characters may act 2 or 3 times in a round, so you have to manage that pool of dice. And if you blow it all on your first shot, you're not going to have it for any subsequent ones. You're not going to have it for you're not going to have it to use to defend yourself, so on and so forth. Now, it's not a perfect system. Like I said, I think there's some tweaking that certainly could be done, but I always like that one. But there's another system I haven't. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's interesting. You're talking about that. It made me think of another game and another system I use that I've never seen anywhere else. You ever hear the game of The Creature That Ate Sheboygan? It's a game where one player plays the monster,
right,
and the other player plays the humans, an army, and the monster arrives in the city, and you have to get the populace out of the city, and then you got to get your army troops in and eliminate the monster, or the monster destroys the city. Either the humans win or the monster wins. But the way this was set up was in ratios. So you would like if 6 cannons lined up, or 6 tanks lined up against the monster, they would have an attack score, and then you would add that attack score together, and then you would look at the monster's defense score, and then you would have to do the ratio. Now, of course, I'm a math teacher, so it was very easy for me to do all these ratios and figure it out. But I had never seen another game like that, and I thought the system worked really, really, really well. Because again, if one tank drove up, to Godzilla, the ratio was in Godzilla's favor, and then you would roll on this table, and then you would look at the ratio, and I had never seen another game system like that, so I had to bring it up, and that was another game I brought into my classroom.
Nice.
With ratios and fractions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of a thing. So I'll 2 pieces on this, and then I'll stop beating the mechanics to death. I was working on my own set of rules. I think that's every nerd's. That's the that's not the Holy Grail, but whatever. That's the if there's a term for it.
I tried to make a Shogun Warrior game way back in the day.
We all try to write rules. That's the thing. That's everyone's end game, I guess. So in mine, a big thing for mine, and I think, and I'm still not giving up on the idea because I think that the more we merge technology with tabletop, systems like mine will become more plausible and it might be better. My point was this: is that I like the idea of crunch in a game where there's a lot of levers to flip, and you as the player, both through your in-game choices and your initial build and the things you decide on, that there be a lot of factors that affect your your ability in all different areas. How hard, how well you survive combat, how lethal you are, how successful you are, whatever. And I like the idea that multiple things will contribute to that. That goes back to the Shadowrun system. And I had the idea where, you'd have some basic direct relating stats. So, your skill with a weapon translates to some portion of that translates back to defense. The gear that you have, what kind of styles you focus on. So a bunch of little options, right? So that you have a bunch of this crunchy math stuff outside the game, but you use like a tablet or whatever that auto factors all of these things in for you.
I mean, I was going to say, that's what's made 5e so popular.
Yeah.
Because people have jumped into the game.
Doesn't have that stuff.
And you don't have to add anything when you're on Beyond.
Yeah.
You don't have to add any pluses, it's like Jesus Christ.
First of all, there isn't a lot. They stripped out just about everything to add anyways. So
right.
there isn't a bunch, and then you have a calculator for it. So I mean, I can gripe as an old man about these whippersnappers and their calculators in math class, but it is what it is. But so in my own personal system, I wanted to have all those different factors, and then things like because one of the things that I hate gnomes for a lot of reasons, but one of the things that always bothered me was the immersion breaking nature of a fucking gnome or halfling. You know, Frodo having an 18 strength and being stronger than a half orc barbarian who's got a 17 strength. Like, that's just stupid. Like, I guarantee you the mountain from Game of Thrones is going to murder any person with dwarfism on the planet Earth, no matter how jacked up they are. Like, there's just nothing they're going to do about it. You know, a grizzly bear is going to kill you, and a grizzly bear is going to kill the mountain, doesn't matter what he does.
See, and to me, if someone is doing that, they're not in the campaign. I mean, I feel like when you're playing D&D, your DM is still the guide. And you're going to run that by him first. And if a player said to me, my gnome has an 18 strength, I'd be like, come on, dude.
Well, so this is my thing. So this is my solution to that. And my rules was going to be a meta stat. It was going to be your power rating. And like I said, I like the player's choices to matter the most. So, and this is not to get into my personal thoughts about body positivity nonsense, but there's a trend with part of the community about make your characters fat and fabulous and whatnot. There's different body types. Let me tell you something. First of all, from an immersion standpoint, if I had my real world physical abilities in the D&D game, I would die to the first goblin that came along because I'm fat and slow and squishy. Right. Yeah. So having my D&D character be a hefty honey I'm glad you feel included and makes you happy about yourself, but it's like, yeah, you're gonna die. Like you can't run.
Really not practical.
Yeah, you can't run fast. You're not really dodging blows in combat for very long. Let's calm down with that shit.
Now, and I will say this: we did do that once back in the day, where we all played ourselves.
Yeah, I've played Avatar games before. They're fun.
Yeah, they're great, but you get killed right away.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So my point was I had a metastat in the system called power, and it was your size, and then players would choose their build. So if you wanted to be the mountain as a fighter versus the viper, so if Game of Thrones reference, so if you don't know it, so, the gigantic Brock Lesnar NFL player looking monstrosity human kind of thing, as your character versus being, somebody who, versus being, Wesley from, or the Dread Pirate Roberts from Princess Bride kind of thing. Right, the big hulking brute versus the nimble, skillful guy, John Wick versus the mountain, if you will. Like, you would make that choice as a player, like what your character's built like, and that would affect these metastats. So, a halfling with an 18 strength would have a power rating of, 0.5 because they're jacked, but they're small. That
makes sense. Yeah, I see what you're doing.
And then the Goliath would have a power rating of 2, and a bear would have a 3, and a dragon would have like a fucking 20, and that would get over that problem. So you could be the most jacked of the short people, but you're not stronger than than an orc who lives in the wilderness and murders people for a living, kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a ratio system, really.
Yeah, essentially that kind of stuff. And then the other game system that I found interesting, and I don't know too much about it, and I think this is actually called the Fate system, but they use it in one of the versions of the Warhammer RPG, and they use it in another couple games, where player describes what's going to happen, what they want, what they're trying to. The DM describes a scenario, the player describes what they're going to try to do, and then they roll these fate dice, and then depending on character specific stuff, scenario, situation stuff, and whatnot, you will add or remove good dice, bad dice, neutral dice, random dice, kind of thing. You will have those, and then you roll those, and then you separate the good dice go here, the fate dice go in the middle, the bad dice go to the right, and then they'll have different symbols. They don't have numbers; they have symbols on them. And then the narrator looks at that and says, "Okay, you got this result in the goods, you got this result in the randoms, you got this result towards the bad," and then based on that, they narrate the outcome. So there's no like rolling the hit or damage, no rolling success, checks for success. It's here's a scenario, what are you doing? Boom, you roll. And then it goes bad, it goes great, it goes good, it goes bad, it goes sideways, unexpected things happen based on the interpretation of these dice. And I thought it was a really good idea, like really interesting, but I think it needs a certain kind of DM and a certain kind of player that want to be in that kind of mode, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that is awesome. I certainly it's just a good idea, but I don't know if it's going to work out so well. So okay, hey, so we are at the 1 hour mark. So I would like to take a quick 5-minute break. Gives me a chance to test out the waiting screen and stuff in the stream, refresh my beverages, empty my reserve, if you will, and whatnot. So for the stream out there, how about take about a 5-minute break? I'm going to outro you guys with the game theme song, and I'm going to switch over to the Be Right Back screen, and we'll take a quick 5-minute break.
Yeah, welcome back.
Oh God! Oh, I didn't have a countdown timer. Shit, you're right. I'm looking at my my chat window. I definitely should have muted. Ooh, I didn't mute Discord. Whoops. Well, we're bad at this sort of thing. We'll get there, I guess. So, hey, so welcome back, everybody. We'll learn these things.
Yes,
so,
welcome back.
Yeah. All right, let me make sure we got.
Rusty, but we'll be all right.
Everything's going as far as I can tell. I think we're still on the interweb, so let's kick it off. We'll get into the second half of the show as we close down here. So, we've established some nerd cred, talked about some of the things we like. I don't like anything, especially not Magic or fantasy games. But I'm curious,
gnomes.
though.
Or gnomes.
I definitely hate gnomes. As we've been mentioned a couple of times, we both picked up a gig doing some writing and obviously some other things for Dungeon Studios. Their second Kickstarter is coming out, I believe. I want to say November, I think they launch it.
Yep. November will be the launch for the modules, and then December is actually going to be the launch for some supplement books.
Yeah, I believe the first setting book for them, right?
Yeah, for Droden and Avast will be the two settings in the setting books coming out in December.
Nice.
The modules have Briny Botel.
Okay.
For the lower 1 to 3.
And
4
what's
to 5 we have.
Wait, hang on. What's the back cover splash for Briny Botel?
That's a murder mystery. Would be the theme.
All right.
The party gets stuck at a botel and witness a murder and can try to solve it.
Wonderful. What's the next level up?
The next level is 4 to 6, I think.
Okay.
And that's Misty Towers, which is you are on a quest. You're actually following a warlock who is trying to get one of Eneron's Hell's Bells from the Misty Tower. The Misty Tower was built by a crazy-ass gnome. So you can just imagine where that's going to lead the players. And then the next one up, I'm forgetting one. Pillars of Light is 10 to 12.
So Rise of the Ravenlord, right?
Oh, no. Rise of the Ravenlord is 13 to 15.
Oh.
Yeah.
Galley is the big
and then
one.
the Galley, General
then?
Lost Galley, is going to be an 18 to 20.
What about, is this the, what's the one with the penitent or whatever, my brain's drawing a blank.
Oh, with the underwater?
No, it's the thing, the stuff for the thing in Peoples.
Stuff for the thing in Peoples.
Hang on, let me look.
Titan's Peak is the one in between.
Mine's a high level one.
That's what I forgot.
No, mine's a high level one.
What level is yours?
15 to 18.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's
we're missing the middle. We're missing the middle one, which I thought penitent, whatever is of the blind god. Is that the one?
No. The Vision of the Blind God came out as a mini adventure in the Eneron Chronicle. We're up to 3 issues now, and there's an extra Enron adventures in that as well.
Yeah, no, Rise of the Ravenlords. It's in the Volume 2 list.
It is,
So, one,
but
two,
it's also upper
Dark
level.
Escape.
That's it. Dark Escape. All right, so I do know the theme of Dark Escape.
Okay.
Is the introduction to Enron's Nether Void, which I believe is their Underdark.
Okay. And Pillars of Light. What's that one?
Pillars of Light, you are trying to save a race of insect creatures who have been forced out of their home by a blue dragon.
Okay. Rise of the Ravenlord.
Rise of the Ravenlord is, again, another introductory into the Scourge. And the Scourge is Enron's version of the Shadowfell.
Okay.
Or the Dark Plane.
And Titan's Peak is a delve into a marvel of technology long forgotten.
It's funny. You said you were not into steampunk yet.
Oh, dude, let me tell you something. Do not think for a moment the irony was not lost on me that I got assigned the module with all of the things I hate.
Yeah.
So but I am a professional. Well, I am hoping to be a professional creator of the things, and sometimes there are things in my setting that people may not like, i.e. the mass murder of gnomes, and it is what it is. So let's
go back to Titan's Peak. So tell us a little bit about it, because I cut you off before you got anything out.
Yeah, no. It's like I said, it's an exploration of a marvel of a long forgotten age that rapidly turns into a race against the clock, an unexpected foe, and a series of twists and turns. The result of which could have catastrophic results for all of Enron, should the players fail.
Right, and then the next is
the galley.
General's Lost Galley, where you are. I know the writer is still putting it together, but the overall theme is the Lost Galley. There is a humongous
I believe
creature.
There's a hunt for a lost ship.
Right, a hunt for a lost
battling
ship.
Battling against the Denzians of the deep and the dark.
Right.
For fame, glory, and treasure.
Really trying to see about an underwater adventure, a real underwater type of
I'm trying
adventure.
I don't know. I realized after I brought this up, we started like trying to do a promo to hook the people, and then I'm like, well, hang on a second. I'm like, are we giving away shit we shouldn't? It's all back. It's back of the book stuff, right?
Yeah, everything we've said has been back of the book. I don't think we're doing anything illegal.
All right. So then, so let me ask you. So I know that every DM is different. They like different things, different moods, different themes, different styles, obviously. So I'm curious to learn more about the games that you run. So I know you're doing play tests, and for the sake of not getting fired in the first show for giving away secrets, I will have to forego hearing about your play tests in public. But let me ask you, you said you run a game for the Girl Scout troop and a game for people that have chronic conditions. So are those both homebrews?
Yeah, those are both homebrews.
Now, are you running the same content for both or different?
I actually am. I am running the same content for both.
So give me the elevator pitch. Let's say you got an empty spot. Hypothetically speaking,
all right.
Somehow one of your Girl Scouts got hit by a bus that I definitely wasn't driving, and now you have an opening for me on Tuesday night. How are you going to hook me?
The way I set this up was for both groups, and especially for the Girl Scouts, I didn't want them to have a big world. So I gave them a very small map that I found on the internet.
Okay.
And it has some highlight points and has a town. And that's what I basically homebrewed, was like that whole map and the different locations on it.
Okay, so you went back. Now, so this is a style question. Did you go all the way back to, pull back into the depths of 1979, and set up that style of, I believe it's called, it's called A Point of Light in the Darkness, where there's little bits of civilization in your small town, and then everything around you is the deep, dark unknown. And then the game is the players exploring the unknown around them. Eventually,
it's called the Old Forest.
Okay.
And the town is on the edge of the Old Forest. They arrive at the town, and the town is desolate. And there's this one guy, Scarlet Valles, who looks like a Three Musketeer in his red outfit.
Okay.
And Lady Jane Margarine, who's sort of the matriarch of the town. And when the adventurers arrive, they're just happy because no one's ever been there. And there's evil in the forest. And we need adventurers to go out and, clean up the forest.
So how do they... So give me the hook. So...
The hook is, you're sent out to make the forest better. Now, the Girl Scouts haven't gotten as far in the campaign, where the Chronic Adventurers have gotten a bit further now.
Okay.
They set out and they met this wizard, this witch, Harridan, that gave them a creature called Snuffles, which is actually a... what would you call Snuffles? A creature of holding. It's basically a chest with dog legs and a dog tail.
Is it the luggage from...
I kind of took it from there.
From
it's kind of like
Discworld, right?
Pratchett luggage. Yeah. The luggage is awesome. I mean, how could you not?
Let me not to sidetrack, not to cut into your time, but let me tell you, that fucking game was one of the most frustrating but enjoyable experiences I ever had. I always think about it, and I always forget to try to find either a copy of it or an emulator so I can play it. Now that I'm older and smarter.
If you have not read the first two books in the Terry Pratchett Discworld series, if you're going to read any of them, you got to read the first two. They're brilliant.
Yeah. So back to your game. So they have the luggage.
So they had the luggage. The luggage was given to them by the wizard, this witch, who may have a secret identity that, like, if they're listening, I don't want to reveal.
No, fair enough.
But they've been using this beast of holding called Snuffles, and they just noticed that some of their things are missing. And they just went back to the witch's location, and she's not there. So the mystery is starting to build. Scarlet Valles actually has a much bigger role to play. But again, I don't want to give too much away.
No. So let me ask you then. Your game one for this. So did they just arrive at the town with already knowing each other? Are they there by chance? What's your setup for getting to the town and then helping in the forest? The village hires them.
They actually don't know each other. They all arrive at the town simultaneously, and then Scarlet Valles, brings them all together and says, you need to work together, kind of thing.
All right.
And then don't forget, with my group, Chronic Adventures, we have people that don't make it and do make it on Saturday or can't make it because they're not feeling well. We really don't worry about all that bookkeeping if someone's here or not here.
Yeah.
So we kind of roll with that a lot.
You hand wave them in, hand wave them out. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah. And really I set up as a sandbox.
Okay.
And they decided which place they wanted to go to first, which of course they picked Green Man Falls because it was rumored that it was a wizard's laboratory. So they went there first. And then there was clues that led them to a mine, which was another location. And then they were anxious to get back to town. And that's the one thing I like about this type of campaign. The traveling itself becomes a session.
Yeah, it's a very episodic kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Like this last 2 sessions ago, they had just finished cleaning up this cemetery of all these undead. Got back to the town. We had a little town encounter, and then they had a folding boat, and they went down the river and had some encounters along the way. But I really feel like that's what really builds the world for the players.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, because the when we have more time, I'll get I'll get into some of my stuff that I like to do. But I agree 1,000%. Not having a map with names and no context for anything that builds on one of the pillars of the game is exploration and discovery, and that's a great way to do that. And then, they do they have a map that they fill out as they go, or do you do that for them?
No, they have the map with the large, like Green Man Falls is here, but they don't know what else might be in between. So I can put anything else I want,
nice.
In between. And then things happen, like in the Girl Scouts during their first wandering encounter. Now, this has never happened to me before, too. They had all females, right? Yep. They encounter a unicorn. And I've never had all females encounter a unicorn before. I've just never had a table of all women.
Okay.
Right? Gosh darn it. These girls, charm this unicorn. Like, they were not ready to battle. They were like, they were like, we want to make friends with, how can
I was, for a brief moment, I thought you were going to say, like, these girls surprised me. They murdered the shit out of that unicorn. That's what I was waiting for you to say.
No. And it was funny then I gave him a nickname. He was Silverhoof.
Yeah.
Right? And now Silverhoof has become a character in their campaign. And I didn't write it. And I found that those types of random encounter things that I build into the sandbox make it even better than if I had tried to premeditate something.
No, let me tell you something. It's one of the lessons that I learned in my old age, and that I live by now and preach to everybody who is player DM, aspiring DM, noob, whatever, is that never turn up your nose at free content and allow the players to create things for you. It's the way I do. And again, I don't want to I'm not going to cut into your time with what I do, but I have systems for that, and it's such a wonderful thing, because you're right, so much good content comes out of the players, intentionally or otherwise, that it's the old meme that the player, it's like the player's suspicions and paranoia are the best DM, because you're just doing what they think's happening. You're like, that's a great idea.
Exactly,
100%.
Exactly.
All right, we got a few minutes.
I've done a lot of murder mysteries in my time too, so I kind of have that. That's always in the back of my head when I'm running adventures too, is that, man, in a murder mystery, people just make some crazy shit up. They don't even lose. They just make shit up.
100%. So, all right.
It's okay.
I see we got to... go ahead.
And I guess my Ravenloft campaign is all homebrewed from basically, the old PDFs I'm finding from the old systems.
Back when it was the Realms of Dread?
Yeah. Yep. And then
or Demi-Planes of Dread, sorry.
I'm kind of piecing things together. Hour of the Raven, great YouTube show, by the way.
Okay.
This guy Gabriel runs it, and he has videos where he presents all the different versions. So I'm also watching those, so I can sort of pick and choose, like, what version of Tristan I want to use in Forlorn.
Right.
Or what version of Juste I want to use in Cena in the Haunted Theater. So that's been really, really, really cool for me.
Nice.
To kind of explore all that. And my big thing is I like to do digital art for all my adventures. So every adventure we do, I do like a cover picture. That's like my big thing.
Nice.
Just, I don't know why. I'm a mixed media guy, I guess.
No, hey, I like that as well. I like it didn't come across very well in my Roll20 games, but I like the idea of having that splash screen that is the default screen that they're on, as things unfold, and then having artwork to throw up there for things, because a lot of times words don't do things justice. So, all right,
I 100% agree with you on that, and I'm working background screens for myself all the time.
Yeah,
I feel it's like essential. I mean, I'm exclusively an online DM because of my illness.
Yeah,
I really can't go anywhere and play in person unless there's like air filters in the room and all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. That sucks. So I see we got a few minutes left here, so I want to wrap this up, but I want to do it in just some rapid fire question kind of formats for you as a DM. So I'm going to run off my my top of my head list of things that I'm curious about. So,
okay,
are you ready to answer?
I'm ready to answer.
Wonderful. All right, let's get the most important one. Snacks during the game or no food while you're playing? Most important question.
Oh, geez. My players are all eating.
Okay.
I have found as the DM, it's really hard to snack and DM.
Yeah, I am well aware of it, but I like food, so I keep eating. All right, next question. All right, so traveling, random encounters off a table, pre-made encounters that may or may not happen, or only what you plan?
Depends on the campaign. I use random for Old Forest, what I've planned for my Ravenloft.
Gotcha. All right. When you are sitting down to plan your story arcs, or sorry, question one: do you plan your games in little story arcs or session by session?
Oh, geez. That's a great question. I think I start with a story arc.
Okay.
But the session can alter that arc. So it is a session to session thing, I think.
Okay.
I may start with an arc to get me going. In fact, my campaign itself is, when we played back in the day, I had a paladin who had a sword called the Cruz de la Plata, who ended up becoming a vampire and never got out of Ravenloft. So that's why the campaign is called The Curse of the Silver Cross.
Very good. Okay.
So my thought was they would always come across this guy again.
Yeah. Very nice.
Right, somewhere in the campaign, but they haven't yet, and I've let them run wherever they've gone.
All right. Do you, in your build process, do you build around a specific scene that inspires you or you want to come to pass? Do you build around encounters? Do you build around something you see in the real world that inspires you for a story or something different?
Wow. Different things for different adventures. Like I know one we did, they were in the Sea of Sorrows. No, they weren't in the Sea of Sorrows. They were in Forlorn. Underground, I found this great isometric map. And it just inspired me to fill it up with Ravenloft, with Gothic evil. But then other times I might see an image or a picture that says, this is how you need to design this.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. And then when I did Cena, when I designed my own theater of horror, I actually just went to Viennese theater blueprints to inspire the whole, and we played from the blueprints instead of maps.
Okay.
So that was kind of gave it like a classic twist. And I actually had photos of the theater that they were in. So I kind of changed it from map to blueprints and photos. So it was kind of a really neat immersion, a very different immersion type of game.
Right. So it sounds like your build process is inspiration, in-game events.
Yeah,
are your big ones. Very, very nice, very nice. All right. And then my last question, do you strive to keep them alive or let them die?
Gosh, it's funny. I strive to kill them.
Okay.
But I can't seem to.
Well, it's really hard in the system. But let me ask you, when you say that.
And I think that's the thing, is when I first started playing in this system, I wasn't. I was striving to keep them alive. Okay. And I realized there was no reason to strive to keep them alive. They have enough bonus actions and extra bam. So it started to get to the point where, especially in the Ravenloft campaign, I'm going to you guys are going to fight 100 goblins at Forlorn. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I had built this battle map where they had hot tar coming at them and logs rolling down the field. And and they still survived it. And then even if you kill somebody, somebody's got to revivify or.
Yep. Yeah, that was I'm with you on that, man. One of the things, my closing thought for the evening, not spoilers if anybody listens to Critical Role and hasn't kept themselves current with this season. There, several episodes back, there was this huge to-do about the bloodbath of episode whatever, and I have kind of fallen off the show because for a lot of reasons that I won't waste the end of this episode on, but I'm like, well, I got to get to this. I got to catch up to that point because I got to see what happens, who gets killed. And to your point, it takes a very unique set of circumstances to start dropping players. and there's all that supposed drama. But as I'm listening to the episode, I'm like, you know what? Like, these people they're not staying dead. And at the end of it, only one character didn't make it. And I can already tell that the next several sessions, which I haven't watched, are going to be the quest to bring that one character back, and they're not going to have a problem being able to do that. So
interesting. I am not a Critical Role fan, so I'm not a follower or a fan, but that's interesting.
See, and this is my thing with the game. Like I said, if it makes sense that they would have access to find people, I'm again, it goes along with the idea of let the players create the content, let the game create content too. So if someone,
I think I gotta stop you here though, because I think the most important thing is some of the most memorable occasions, some of the memorable games are when my players died.
Yeah.
And when I started my Ravenloft campaign, I let everybody know you're gonna die. I haven't been able to kill them yet. But that's what makes a horror campaign a horror campaign. If nobody dies, it's where's the horror?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
oh yeah. Well, like I said, I as long as it makes sense that they have the resources and whatnot, I'm not opposed to them trying to resurrect somebody. And it's like I said, it's free content. It creates it creates a mini arc on the backdrop of everything else that they're going to try to do this as long as the setting allows it and whatnot. I don't have a problem with it because let's be honest, that's sessions that they write themselves essentially. And if the players want to do it and they're having a good time, great. That's a great building exercise for the players to know that their fellows are going to go through the effort of trying to bring their character back, and that's a good feeling to have players that want to do that. But yeah, I am with you. It's really hard to kill them. I have ideas about making it a little more grim, dark, to put that tension and horror back in, like you're speaking about, especially in those settings.
I really feel like my group, we do a good job, even though they may never lose a hit point. I had them scared shitless when they were like in a mind flare lair. You know what I mean? Like, that's the one important thing. I don't think they necessarily have to lose hit points to be horrified. That's another thing. If you know how to run a horror game, it can run without. It can be scary. It can still be scary.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and this is a whole topic for a whole show. Is putting that in there, and I do think if there are no stakes, there can be no drama. If there is no death, there are no challenges. Then why roll dice? Why have character sheets? I'm more. You can sit around the campfire and build that communal tale, and it goes how everybody wants to go. So I will close on my thoughts on this and get everybody off to bed this evening. But my opinion, D&D, there's no winning or losing. There was only the developing of the story, and sometimes it goes the way you want. Sometimes it goes the way you don't want, and other times it goes somewhere completely unexpected. But that's the fun of the game. So
yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. There is no winning or losing. It's just a good time with good company.
Absolutely. So I will give you the floor. Any outro statement, things you want to say before we sign off for the evening?
No, I wanted to thank you for setting up the recording and everything, doing an awesome job there. I know it's a little tricky. We'll get all straightened out.
Yeah.
But again, if you're a player, DM, like any types of role-playing games, come check us out. We're going to try to be broadcasting every week if we can.
Yeah, just about. If not live every week, we'll definitely have try to have an episode out at least once a week for everybody. If you're on the internet listening to us live or recorded, thank you for spending the time with us. And I want to put it out there that our plan is to have open-ended conversations, because we don't play. You play RPGs because they are games that are limitless possibilities. They are unlimited stories. So why would you listen to conversations that are any different? Thank you. Enjoy your evening, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, take care, everybody.